Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode number 44 of Ask Dr. Zaino Live. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I see people that are still coming in, logging into the chat roll, which we also appreciate. You'll notice if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, if you're watching live at chirothoughtleaders.com/ask-dr-zaino, there's a chat roll there, and we're going to make sure that our guest tonight, Clarke, he gets all your questions, and it's going to be an awesome episode. I know this because I got to see some of the topics he's going to cover tonight, and I won't give it away right now. I'll let him introduce them, but I'm just super excited. Just to introduce the page a little bit, right below the video, you're going to see a big orange button that says Get Access Now, and we will explain what that is here a little later as well. Below that, you'll see our social media links, and then below that, the chat roll. So, guys, we are on a series of trainings focused on getting your money right. This is the third series, the last and final training. Going to be, I don't know if Garrett and Tim are listening, but I might be the best one. And the other two were phenomenal, off the charts, and everybody who participated and who's here live and watched the replays, we really appreciate it. I want to introduce our guest, and I want to do that by actually reading one of the comments that a doctor put in the chat already, and it was actually kind of a testimonial, but just an amazing testimonial. It says, "Excited to hear Dale share some financial wisdom. My wife and I love working with him and the rest of Garrett's accredited network, ! Dale has helped us structure our finances better, increase monthly cash flow by over $1,800, make wiser investments that are aligned with our sole purpose, and perhaps most importantly, create a mindset of peace and abundance. Grateful to Dr. Zaino for introducing me to this team of financial wizards at the Zaino Experience. It's helped my practice and finances grow. Thanks, Z." Awesome. That's phenomenal. Thank you for the comments. And guys, if you have any questions or comments during this, please put them in that chat roll below, and I'll make sure that Dale gets them. Dale, how are you tonight, man?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me join you tonight.
Oh, it's an honor. We're happy that you could be here, you and your whole team, man. You guys have been awesome to us, just giving out tons of content. And I'm excited for your topics tonight. I really am.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to be here, and you guys have had really a great opportunity to hear and kind of listen to Garrett Gunderson, the master of the financial world, who has also been a guy that has been my mentor for over 15 years now. Tim Carden, who also is a cash flow specialist with Wealth Factory and one of my personal best friends. You've had some really, really wonderful people on these, on this show with you over the last couple of weeks, and I'm excited tonight because today we're going to finish out this series about managing your finances and really go on a quest. And that's what I'm excited about tonight, because we're going to focus on how you can live wealthy today and begin that quest. And it's a really great time to do that, because honestly, we're starting the new year. It's 2017. It's amazing that we're already here, and a lot of people are thinking about New Year's resolutions. Whether it be going back to the gym, hitting it hard. Dr. Z is a great example of that. In fact, I've been training with my fitness trainer for about 2.5 years now, and it's always funny the first week of January to see the gym explode with people, and so. That might be a resolution. A lot of people have resolutions to improve their relationships. I think one of the #1 resolutions that people have is paying off debt and getting their finances in order. So I'm excited about that, because we're going to go on a quest tonight that's going to be unique from what you've heard before, because the traditional financial industry is focused on how can you scrimp and scrape and save and defer your happiness and work in a job that you can't stand for the next 40 years, only so someday, hopefully if you make it to retirement, that you can really live the life that you love. That's not a formula for success, in my opinion. My formula is, how can you live wealthy today? And I'm going to share with you a couple of tips. Over here at Wealth Factory, our focus is on how to help people manufacture economic independence. And what we mean by that is that you don't have to work to cover your basic expenses, okay? And we have a program here at Wealth Factory where we help our members achieve that. Now, we don't think that people can get rich quick, but on average, it takes our members about 3 to 7 years to reach economic independence, where money is not the primary reason, or it's not the primary excuse for doing or not doing anything. And I don't know about you, but a lot of us, when we go to the store to buy something, whether it's a new car or a new smartphone, the first thing we do is we look at the price. We look at the price tag. And if the price is too much, the very first thing we do is we put it down and we go to the less expensive item on the list. Well, I don't think that money should be that primary motivator, that primary decision maker in your life. It should be value. Now, money certainly is always going to be important. Money should be a secondary consideration in a lot of things that you do. But what we're saying is that you don't need to make it be the primary reason, and our program is really designed to help people manufacture economic independence in 3 to 7 years. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about kind of where we're headed today. And I know that Garrett spent a lot of time talking about the philosophy and the perspective and getting your mind straight, because if your mind is not straight, then no matter what strategy, what tool, what product that you implement, you're always going to be in the scarcity mentality. You're always going to be in that mode of fear, doubt, and worry. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what are some things that you can do having that right philosophy. Now, on the second call, as you spoke with Tim, or you heard Tim speak, he talked a little bit about setting up proper account structure. He talked about the purpose of a wealth capture account, a living wealthy account. He shared one of my personal favorite tools out there to basically pay off, inappropriate or bad debt through a system called the cash flow index. And so very, very, very powerful system and very practical. Today, we're actually going to bring all this home and share the #1 strategy of the Wealth Factory team and the Wealth Factory members. In fact, we've taken survey after survey after survey about what the most popular strategy is that people implement as they go through this process. And it's a process that we call cash flow banking. Now, I don't know how much Tim or Garrett talked about that on the previous calls.
Actually, I don't think they may have mentioned it, but they didn't dive in it. And that was one reason I'm really excited, Dale, because I have heard the terms cash flow banking over and over, but I honestly don't have a great grasp of exactly what that is. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's talk about that. And honestly, there are a lot of wealthy people in our country that have used this system for many, many years. In fact, this system is not new. It's been around for 200 plus years. And it's a way of rigging the money game in your favor, okay? Because most people, when they go, they use the financial systems, they're reliant upon banks and other financial institutions to borrow money. And they're at the whim of whatever interest rates the bank is willing to offer, whatever loan rates the bank is going to charge to borrow money. And so there's not a lot of flexibility. And if you ever miss a payment and you borrow, let's say you buy a car, you take out a loan, you buy a car, and you miss your payment, it impacts your credit score, right? So what we want to talk about is how can you create a personal banking system that gets a 5 to 10% higher return than the banks are currently paying right now. Not 5 to 10%, 5 to 10 times higher return than what you're going to get in the bank. Average bank is paying 0.1 to 0.25% right now. This system is a way that we can get a guaranteed return of 4% on your money, okay? And allow you to self-finance all of your major purchases, okay? So we'll talk a little bit about this, but this system has been around for quite a while. In fact, prior to the 1970s, I don't know if Garrett talked about what happened in the 1970s, but ERISA came about, and the 401k, qualified plans were born. 401ks, IRAs, 529 plans, KEOs, Roth IRAs, all those traditionally qualified plans, they were born in the late 70s. Well, prior to that, unbeknownst to most people, there were two really popular methods to save money, okay? The stock market wasn't a play of the poor and the middle class, okay? It was real estate And then this whole cash flow banking system that we're going to talk about. Those were the two predominant methods that people used to save and prepare and create a good retirement strategy for themselves. Well, then people became greedy when this ERISA Act came out, and they thought, why would I take or accept a 4 to 5% guaranteed return on my money when I can get 8 or 10% of the stock market? Yes, I understand that I have to take a lot more risk, and there are far fewer protections, but I do have the ability to make a higher return. And so, people flocked away from these other traditional products and went into, kind of these other market, related investments. And it ended up working out pretty well for a few years. But if any of you have followed the stock market for the last 15 years, what you probably noticed is a pretty flat return on your investment. In fact, I did an analysis. One thing you don't know about me is I'm a mechanical engineer. I used to design rocket engines.
Nice.
And so I did an analysis over a 15-year period of time from 2000 to 2015. Do you know what my rate of return was in my stock portfolio? It was about 3% average rate of return.
Wow.
Well, that's not what you've been sold. That's not what your traditional financial advisor is telling you you're going to get on your mutual fund portfolio. They're telling you 8, 10, 12%. Well, one thing I'd like to task all of you with is to actually go out there and see if that's the returns that you've been yielding. Now, you might have got a 10 or 15% this year, but what about compounded over 15 years? What is that average rate of return that you've been getting, right? And so that's kind of the evolution of what's happened. So we're going back to some of the basics tonight. We're talking about a system where you can earn a far higher rate of return than you can with the banks, in your savings account, your CDs. It's a way to safeguard your retirement nest egg, so it's not subject to the whims of the ups and downs in the stock market. And it allows you to take control of your finances so you can enjoy your money now. And that's the big thing right there. A lot of these qualified plans, whether it's an IRA or a 401k, if you want to access the money, well, if you're under the age of 59 and a half, you're going to pay a 10% penalty. There could be taxes assessed to it. And those taxes and penalties and fees could eat away 3 to 4% of the total return of that investment. So, my favorite saving strategy is this cash flow banking system, and it is the one thing that has helped me finally feel confident about my financial future through using one simple financial system. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what it is, and I encourage you to have an open mind as you hear about this, because you may have heard both positive and perhaps negative things about this particular vehicle. But the tool that is most favorable to create this cash flow banking system, this private banking system, is a 200-year-old product called permanent life insurance. Okay, often referred to as whole life insurance. Okay, so that's the tool that we use. However, there are 5 critical mistakes that people make when buying life insurance that could derail their plan. In fact, about 95% of the plans that are out there are going to set you down the wrong path. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how you can make sure that as you set up this cash flow banking system, that you don't end up making some of these big mistakes. Okay, so and if you want to write these down, you're welcome to. The first mistake that people make, this is the first tip that I'm going to share with you tonight, is that people are not buying the right amount of insurance. They don't know how much insurance they're worth. They've never done an analysis to calculate how much life insurance they have. They basically rely on other people, or maybe they have an employer that provides a benefit there. Or as a doctor, maybe you're taking out a life insurance policy in the amount that would secure a business loan or is collateral for an office building that you purchased. But that's the only rationale behind the amount of life insurance you have. Well, we actually propose that you get the full amount of coverage that the insurance company is willing to offer you. And that's actually a multiple of your income. If you're in your 20s and 30s, it's 20 to 30 times your income. So as an example, if you're 25 years old right now and you're making $100,000 a year, you would qualify for up to $3 million or 30 times your annual income. Okay. Now, the biggest mistake people are making is they don't get the right amount of coverage. So we first and foremost want to make sure that we fully cover that. Now, number two, this is a big mistake that people make, is that they don't purchase the right type of insurance. For every 10 products that are out there, there's only one that is actually a good product, okay? For instance, a lot of people have bought into the philosophy of buy term and invest the difference. They go out and they buy cheap term insurance, and then the money that they would have put into permanent insurance, they would go invest in the stock market. Well, one of the problems behind that is when they go buy their term insurance, they don't elect a feature that might actually only cost about $1 a month called convertibility, or a conversion option. And what that allows you to do is buy term insurance at a very inexpensive rate right now while you're focusing on growing your business, but gives you the option or a window of 10 years to upgrade that policy from a term policy to a whole life policy without having to prove good health, insurability, anything like that. And so we want to make sure that if you're securing term insurance, that it has a convertibility option. Most policies don't offer that, okay? Now, there's a type of permanent life insurance that a lot of people have been sold that transfers the risk back to you as an insured party, and it's called universal life insurance. It's a type of permanent insurance because it does build cash value. However, that cash value is based on maybe market returns, and it's built on term insurance. It's built on a term chassis. And so the cost of the insurance inside the policy gets more and more expensive. The cost is not guaranteed like it is in whole life. And so Garrett likes to call universal life very fondly ugly life insurance. And there's a variant out there called VUL, variable universal life, which we call very ugly life insurance. And we call it that because almost all of these policies collapse when people get into their 60s and 70s. Right when you need it the most, the policy falls apart. All the money you put into it disappears because the cost of the term insurance underneath it gets too expensive. And it's not a fun conversation when I have that, but it happens all the time where we're talking about, should I keep my universal life policy? And a lot of times it's really not a good suggestion to do that, okay? So that's the second mistake, is not buying the right type of insurance. Now, number three, and this I'll only spend a minute on this, is most people use their group insurance as their primary coverage. Now, I know a lot of your listeners here are actually business owners, and so they don't actually work for someone else. But in corporate America, you know, people are offered 1 to 2 times their salary in terms of a death benefit. And so that's all they keep. That's all they have. They only get what the company offers them and no more. And one of the issues with that is when they decide to quit or move on, the policy is not portable. And so you have to go then reapply for a new policy or rely on the new company to get it for you. So we want to make sure that you have as much private insurance as possible and minimize the amount of group insurance other than what the company pays, you know, that you don't have to pay for at all for the coverage, okay? Now, number 4, this is the mistake that I think that most people make when setting up their life insurance policies, and this is my favorite by far, is that people don't design their policy to be cash rich in the early years. Now, whole life insurance traditionally has a bad rap because what happens is you buy this big, huge death benefit, but who gets it? Well, it's your beneficiary. It might be a spouse, it might be a child, but you never get to use that money. Now, that's not inspiring to a lot of people that they pay tens of thousands of dollars over the course of their life just to never use the benefit. It goes to their spouse or their kids. If you design these policies properly, you can add a feature to the policy called a paid-up additions rider. And it just simply allows you to add extra money into the policy without having to pay commissions or fees or extra costs. And what it allows you to do is to create a living benefit. And this is what I love. So I personally have 12 policies, you know, in full disclosure. Most of them are whole life insurance policies. And those policies, I don't plan on using them as a death benefit to pass on the $11 million that I have on me to my spouse and kids. Now, I hope there's some that I can leave over to them. But my whole life insurance is my 401k. This is the plan that I use to create a stream of income when I decide to retire. And so I'm putting 6 figures into my whole life insurance every year. In fact, my last policy that I bought is $100,000 a year. And after contributing $1 million over a 10-year period, this policy will grow to the point where when I turn 67, I can draw out $250,000 per year, so $250,000 per year for 25 years. I can live off that. And the cool part about this, you don't have to pay taxes on the earnings, on the growth. So my policy, I'm going to put in $1 million, let it simmer, let it grow, 4% guarantee plus dividends take it up to about 5.5%. And then when I decide to get to the point where maybe I'm going to retire my business and I want to start drawing money off of it, I can access not just that $1 million, but in my policy, it's going to be about $4 million. And that $3 million in growth, all the earnings, the dividends, the interest, I can access tax-free. I can pull that out without penalty, without taxes, and I can use that to live off. And that's really a cool strategy. How many retirement strategies do you know about that you can create a 0% tax on your earnings when you decide to pull money out?
Wow.
If you look at your 401k, can you do that?
No.
You can't. You're going to pay ordinary income taxes on money coming out of the 401k. Same thing with your Roth IRA.
Wow.
And so this is a strategy. And again, I like this a lot because it allows us to grow our money and to grow it in a tax-advantaged environment. And what's cool about this is we can create a scenario where the policy is very cash-rich on day one, meaning we can put money into it, and literally 30 days later, we can pull the money out and use it for whatever reason that we want without having to pay penalties or taxes.
Wow.
So this is why it's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, like, I've researched it myself because even the words cash flow banking it's very interesting. You know what I mean? Like, you could probably just put that as an email subject line that everybody would open it. Your open rates would be crazy, right? Just because it's so interesting. But I have, and even all the research I've done or even trainings I've been on, I've not heard it explained as well as you just did. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. So we want to make sure that it's designed properly. And so that's the biggest mistake that people are making is they're paying too many commissions and fees to their agent, and they're not building policies that are cash rich with all the tax advantages. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I know that you're going to show us more about how we can get more info on how to do this, but definitely want to learn more about how to set this up. So
absolutely, yeah. So let me share maybe three ideas of how I'm using the cash flow banking policy, and this is something that you ought to think about in terms of how this can help you. Mm-hmm. We've talked about some of the features. You can earn a consistent guaranteed return on your money, 4% guarantee. The bank's paying 0.1%, maybe 0.25. How you can earn dividends that can bring it up to 5.5% to 6%. This allows you to be your own bank to borrow money without having to pull a credit report, a credit check. There's no loan application. You can take money out. It's a private contract. It allows you to build cash reserves. So a lot of people, me included, I used to have a huge emergency fund. I'd have 6 months worth of my expenses in a savings account making 0.1%. No longer. I have 1 month in my emergency savings account. Everything else is in my cash flow banking policy because if I need to access it for an emergency, I can literally get to the money within 1 to 2 days. And
now,
so
let me ask you this. Why is it called cash flow banking? I mean, where's the cash flow in that?
Well, so everything about Wealth Factory is about how can you create a living benefit today. Mm-hmm. So how can you optimize your cash flow? Traditional financial planning says you want to build up a big nest egg in the future. You want to build your net worth. That is kind of a measure of your ultimate productivity and success in life. To me, I would much rather have a guaranteed return of $250,000 a year in cash flow than I would $1 million in an investment account. So,
absolutely.
Okay.
That makes sense.
What these policies allow you to do is to create a stream of cash flow in your life. So, there's three really ways that, three key strategies that I use that allow me to cash flow from this. The first one is you can use this money as your own personal banking, kind of vehicle. So, when I've bought cars in the past, traditionally I'd go to the bank. I don't have to do that anymore. I can borrow the cash from my account, pay whatever interest I want to back to myself. Now, there is a little fee that you have to pay to the bank, an interest rate that you have to pay to the life insurance carrier. But anything in excess of that goes straight to your account. And so I can do that without having to pull up, credit reports, and I can determine how I repay it myself.
Right.
So that's one of the ways that I've done it. And I've bought my cars that way. Garrett Gunderson and I are writing a book right now called Budgeting Sucks. And I've actually paid my editors out of my cash flow banking policy multiple times, because I can borrow the money at a better rate and I can pay it back at better terms, that I set up, than having to wait on the bank to, determine how I do that.
Nice.
So that's one way you can do it. College funding. If you have kids that are, anywhere between the ages of 1 and 18, this is a really great strategy to start saving for their future. All 4 of my kids have cash flow banking policies set up on them. I try to maximum fund my contributions into those accounts so that I can help pay for their college education. Obviously, we've talked about using this to create a stream of income at retirement. The big picture is this. Your life insurance policy with these cash flow banking policies is not about death at all. It's all about living wealthy today, creating a stream of income today, doing what you want to, and having the freedom and flexibility to do that. So that being said, a lot of people, we're not able to cover a ton of content, on this webinar tonight, this show tonight. So I kind of wanted to share a couple options if you're interested more in learning more about, just getting educated on what cash flow banking is. Garrett Gunderson and I actually recorded a 25-part video education series. It is phenomenal. You guys heard Garrett Gunderson talk, a couple weeks ago. He is, amazing, in the world of finance. And each of these videos was designed and targeted to be less than 10 minutes long. So I think it would be a good strategy to listen to one of these videos per night for 25 days. It might be a financial quest that you go on. The way that you can access this is if you go to www, and if you have your pens out or if you want to go onto your web browser, you can type this in right now, www.wealthfactory.com/Z show, for the Zaino show, right? So I'll say that again, wealthfactory.com/Z show. And we actually have an opportunity or offer going on right now. Traditionally, this course is a $397 course. However, for those listeners that are here on the show today and, kind of working with Dr. Zaino, we're actually providing a $200 discount to this. So the cost of this course, including a one-on-one consultation with a certified cash flow banking specialist that can educate you on how to set this up, is $197. So I'd encourage you guys, if you want to learn more about this concept of cash flow banking, how it works, whether you want to have a consultation with a certified specialist or you just want to learn more about the subject, how it could benefit you, this is a really great way to learn about it. So,
awesome, man. That's beautiful, and I'm certainly joining to go through those courses. For those of you watching live, you'll find a big orange button below the video on this page that says Get Access Now. That link, if you click on it, will open a new page and take you straight through to the checkout page is what it's called, but it will show you everything that you get for just $197, $200 off, and we really appreciate you guys doing that and giving us discounts on all this stuff. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. We're happy to be here, and honestly, this has been the one, I call it my never fail me strategy. I've invested in a lot of places. I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money. I've owned many real estate properties. I've invested in 401ks and IRAs and private placement memorandums and, all sorts of different, gold and silver. This is the one strategy that I call the never fail me strategy, because it has never failed me. With economic certainty, this has always worked out. And one last thing I want to share with you tonight. Back in 2008, Warren Buffett, we all know about Warren Buffett, one of the world's wealthiest men. Back in 2008, he was worth $80 billion. At that time, he was the wealthiest man in the world. And we went through the crisis, and his net worth dropped from $80 billion to $40 billion. he lost half the money. And he had to actually stand in front of a group of shareholders and explain why he failed. What went wrong with all of his investments. And then at the end of all of the doom and gloom, he stood up and he said, but I do have one thing that I want to talk about that actually worked out for me this year. And he held up his contract for his life insurance policies. And he said, this actually went up 4.5% in 2008. So think about it. The stock market was dropping 30, 40%. The real estate market was worse than the Great Depression back in 2008, 2009. There's a lot of houses that went down 50% in value. His insurance portfolio went up 4.5% that year. It was the bastion, and it held him, really together. And then he went on to say that he just bought an $8 billion investment in this permanent life insurance. So he went and bought $8 billion in contracts. Now that should tell you a lot about the financial feasibility of this product and the stability that you can get within this. So anyway, just thought I'd share that with you. Let's make sure that you can rig the financial game in your favor and not rely on the stock market uncertainty or the banking industry to govern your financial results.
Awesome, man. Amen to that. And I want to thank you again for your whole team, Garrett and Tim, and I appreciate you coming out and doing this series for us. And guys, the big orange button on the screen right below the video, or go to wealthfactory.com/Z show. Is that right? Yeah.
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Dale. And until next time, we appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a great night, and we'll talk to you on the next show.